Carlos Nelson with Cascade Media Group, and tonight we've got the almost triple threat, as I would say, because this young lady has her own business, and I want to talk to her about mental health a little bit, that she's certified to talk about these things. And I want to be specific on some issues as it relates to people of color and their mental health. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Michelle Vann, founder and CEO of Vanntastic Solutions. She also has another company, and I'm gonna let her elaborate a little bit about that. Hey, Doc, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Nelson. I'm so glad to be here. So my name is Michelle Vann, as he said, and I have a company called Vanntastic Solutions, where we help women navigate and fill the gaps in those transitions as they are transitioning. And it could be from various spaces. So I could be stuck in my career. I could be transitioning from that piece of my child not being home and going to college, or transitioning from a divorce. So I really help women build their confidence as they transition. And then I couple that with a nonprofit that I have called Sistahs Can We Talk, where we fill in the gap in social disparities of health of women of color. One of the things that we understand is that in 2023, we shouldn't have women still dying from maternal health issues. We still shouldn't have women who are not seeking therapy. We should not have people that just don't have enough to eat and don't know about nutrition and are not physically and emotionally and spiritually healthy. And so really what I do is I bring the pieces, mind, body, and spirit together to help specifically women, but people in general, get healthy and get well.
I would like you to talk about off camera. I said when I read your bio and the accreditations that you had, and a doctorate in Christian counseling. Talk to our audience a little bit about what that's about.
So as a Christian counselor, one of the things that I really began to do is look at, what is it a spiritual matter or is it a secular matter? Some things are spiritual. And I think that one of the things that we really don't talk about in the faith community is mental health. We like to just say, hey, if you have enough faith, you should pray and it should go away. Well, that's not really true. And I can have faith and I can believe in God and I can trust God and I can still have depression. I can still have anxiety. I can still have bipolar disorder. And so my faith does not decrease because I have a mental health issue. And so part of what I really am pushing in the faith community is that we do need God. We do need to pray. We do need to meditate. We do need to do whatever our spiritual practices are, but we also can use some therapy. And in some cases, we can use some medication. Most of us can use a diet and nutritional change. And all of those things together can help us to really begin to get healthy, wealthy, and wise.
All right. The next accreditation I'm looking at is Linguistics. You mastered in Practitioner. Talk a little bit about that.
So one of the things that I also understand as we look at wellness, as we look at health, as we look at mental health, is that a lot of our language, especially in the Black community, is very negative. And so as a neurolinguistics, as you look at neurolinguistics, part of it is reframing, looking at changing the language that we use around various terminologies, various things that are happening in our lives, and using that. So we think about things like mantras, we think about things like affirmations. All of those are linguistical sorts of ways in which we began to set a path and a trajectory for ourselves in order to get ourselves from where we are to where we want to be.
Your next, you got this accreditation at Kansas State Board of Education Professional Licensure. What's that about?
Yeah, so I was a teacher for 20 years. I taught public school. I taught elementary school, first and second grade for about 7 years. And then I went to middle school, taught middle school history for probably about 13 years. And then for about 5 years, 4 years, 3 years, I don't know how long I did it. I was a mentor for probational teachers. And so I helped probational and or first year teachers begin to get their licensure. And so we went through that process. So yeah, about 20 years, I was in top public school. Then I came out. Technically, I didn't retire, but after you've been somewhere for 20 years and you leave, that's retirement.
Tired.
So you're right. So I left public school. I went to higher ed. So I was at Tabor College for a year, and I realized I don't like numbers. So financial aid probably wasn't the best place for me. And then I went to Friends University, and I became a dual credit coordinator. So I helped high school kids get college credit while they were still in high school, and really pushed for some of our African-American kids to really begin to think about, and Hispanic kids as well, but to really think about how do you get that college credit while you're still in high school with a teacher that you're comfortable with a price that is really good, and helped you get really started on your path. So that's really kind of what I've been doing over the last bit from about 96 until now.
I want to add, before I go on to the next one, I didn't know that you had all this teaching experience, lady. So I want to ask you, because we're doing a series on 5 reasons why people of color are not getting a good education and blah, blah, blah. But I want to ask you, from the time you came in from kindergarten or whatever that you were teaching 20 years, how did you see the system change? How did you see the demographics change as it relates to proportion in public school? Could you talk about that a little bit?
So as far as educators, there were many times when I was the only Black person in my building that wasn't a janitor or a person in the kitchen. So that was always...
The cutoff king. Tell what years that all this was taking place.
So I taught from 96 until 2016. Yeah, I think somewhere in there. So yeah, so it was really, I saw a real evolution in what was happening. So when I first came in, you could really teach as a teacher. I could really get in. I could have fun with the kids. We could really do a lot of adventure. What I saw happening was that there were people that have never been in the classroom, that are in the legislature, that make these rules and decide what should happen because they come from a business standpoint, and kids are not widgets. And so while and Wichita is one of the biggest places where we create aircraft parts. So while I can go, into my machine shop and I can create this same little willy wink every time, and it looks the same and it has the same formula, kids don't work that way. And so part of what I saw over the years was that we had this ideal of that if you do A, B, and C, that you're going to get this perfect child. Well, that doesn't work because they have a home life, they have trauma, they have all of these things that happen in their lives. They have, sometimes they've not had the best nutritional value while they were in their mom. There's all kinds of factors that contribute to the fact that all of these kids are not alike. And, they're all literally a fruit salad, not, they're not all oranges or apples. And so I think that was the thing that I really saw over time. I've seen a deterioration behavior over time. Parents are not necessarily as active. And some of that is because their parents that are working 2 or 3 jobs, or, that have several kids. So they're just, the activity and how they relate and how they connect are very different from when I began to when I ended. And I kind of left because at that point I realized that maybe I didn't have the patience And I had a principal that said, anytime that you don't get up in the morning and when your feet hit the floor, you are not absolutely freaking excited to be going, and you can't give that child the very best that day, then maybe that's the time for you to go. And I kind of came to that point of where I was like, you know what? I think I've done my time.
Right. I've been there, done that. In public schools. Started the Cub Scout extended day here in Kansas City. My son is 40. Cub Scouts, I think you're in middle school for sure, and taking them camping. And
Yeah.
like you said you were the only minority, but the problem was in Kansas City, had no males in the schools.
Yeah, that's a big factor too.
And so let's move on to your Kansas Leadership Center coaching certificate, and I think that segues into what you were saying, what you were working with the young teachers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Kansas Leadership Center is a miraculous brainchild here in Wichita that serves Wichita and Kansas City and people from around the United States and other countries, where we come in and it's basically based on these pillars to really talk about what does leadership look like. Leadership from the fact that leadership is an activity and not a position. And so how do we actively begin to work through problems, situations that we see in our community? I ran for Senate in 06. And when I did that, it was for state Senate. And so when I did that, part of that was about being civically engaged. And so Kansas Leadership Center is an opportunity to be civically engaged with various issues and having conversations that sometimes raise the heat, sometimes don't feel so comfortable, but are necessary for us to really gain traction and get progress in our communities.
I'm familiar with them. 4 years ago, if you go on our worldwide network, we met some students that were there from Africa, from South Africa and what have you, and they had come to Kansas City on a week-long tour and what have you, and I met them in the restaurant and then brought them up to the studio, and they talked about it, and then they went to New York and other places, and a couple of them had masters and what have you, but that leadership, and they were taking it back to their country.
It's a very different approach to leadership, that it's not top heavy, it's not top down, it's very flat in the fact that all of us have the ability, no matter what your position, no matter whether you have a degree or don't have a degree, everybody can lead.
So let's move to your last, your certificate in cognitive coach degree in finance. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So cognitive coaching is really just, again, kind of like the neurolinguistics, in the fact that we are looking at what parts of your brain light up and how, when they light up, do we begin to activate those happy places, activate those spaces that help us, again, to get unstuck and to move to the places that we really, really want to be, which is a place of healthy, wealthy, and wise.
All right. Now I want to, like I said in the beginning, you are being interviewed on like 3 or 4 or 5. At first I said 3 things, but we're gonna do the kitchen sink into this because you got a lot of expertise, and I want my audience to know that your word has weight because of your experience on some of the things I'm getting ready to talk to you about now. Okay. I want to, because we're primarily a people of color network, those are the type of things that we're primarily concerned with. Not that we're not concerned with everybody else, but right now we're just dealing with the people of color. And I wanted to ask you, how do you feel about the banning of books? How do you feel about just recently? I forgot the young lady that delivered the inaugural speech.
Oh yeah, that her play was
Right.
yes.
And now, how do you feel about all of that as an educator? As an educator on one, do you have kids?
I do.
All
They're
right.
both adults.
As a mom, no matter, and as a citizen, a Black citizen of this country.
So this is kind of a multi-packed sort of question, because I think that one, as an educator, I never want there to be information that students don't have the privilege of being able to decipher whether that is something they want to take in or don't. I think what happens is, for us, it's interesting as a history teacher. I tried to present all aspects of history. My first thing to students was, I don't care what your mama says, what your grandma says, what your auntie says. I don't care what the adults in your life are telling you. I want you to be a thinker, because as an 8th grade kid, in 4 years, you're going to be a voter. And I need you to be able to distinguish what is good and what is not good for the society that you see. One thing that I think that don't understand is that these kids are way more wise than what we think they are. Some of these kids are dealing and being adults in their lives. Some of them have children and various things. And so when we think about banning books, when we think about banning poetry, when we think about not allowing certain literature to be a part of our schema, then we are saying, in short, these people don't matter. This stuff doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter enough that we want to cut it out. But the only reason why I want to cut it out is because I really don't want you to understand how really bad we are. And unfortunately, the world understands that slavery did exist. And it still exists in some ways.
In all ways, to me, I think I talked to you about off camera, the Matrix. Yeah. Everybody on this planet is tied into a job. I'll be like, go ahead and hitch him up like a mule and plow the field. And no matter, how comfortable you are, financially, socially, what have you, you still are hooked in that matrix, and you got somebody that you got to answer to. When you came in this world, you was born free.
Yeah.
But they put you in that matrix, plug you on up from childhood to right now, and you know that you plugged up, but there's nothing you can do about it because of the system. And because
you want the benefits of the system.
Right, but going back, no matter, I'm saying whether they were using currency or whether they were using, back in the day, the Opium Wars, how they subdued China with whatever it is that you have to be comfortable. But so going back to our community, do you, from a mental health standpoint, as I said, I think Black people, specifically African Americans, I usually talk about people of color, but now I'm talking specifically about African Americans. Our mental health, most of us have to change our personalities once we leave out our homes.
Absolutely.
And what have you. And
we have to be very schizophrenic in the way we behave.
All right. Yeah. And I don't think we have enough conversation about these issues personally.
No, because we have to, there's a piece in which, because most of the world is not brown, because most of the world is not Black, because we are navigating in spaces that don't look like us, with people that very much don't look like us and don't appreciate the beauty that we bring to the world. We have to change the way we have conversations. We have to change the way we interact with other people. We have to, I was watching Sykes yesterday, and she was saying, she's married to a French woman. And so she was like, as a French woman, you look white. And she was like, oh, is the bank open? I'm not sure. She was like, well, just go up there and tug on the door. And she was like, no, because a Black woman going up and tugging on the door means I'm about to get the police called on me. Mm-hmm. Well, those microaggressions are the things that are happening all the time. We had just last night, we had a young man here in our city who hit his mom in the head with a brick and killed her in the backyard. He was a 21-year-old Caucasian man. Well, of course, it came out that he had mental health issues. If that had been the same situation and that young man had been Black, that the scenario in which it was painted by the community would not have been the same. We know that because one of the things, the initial thing that we hear when it's a news article, if it is a Black person, we know that right up front. If it's not, if they don't say a Black young man or a Black man, Black woman, then we automatically know, okay, well, they were white.
I'm going to give a shameless plug for Cascade Media Group again, that we're programmed not to go to our own sources of information. And so therefore, I think off camera and on camera, a lot of times in my conversations, I try to explain to the public that really ever since the 7th century, Europeans control 100% of all forms of communications on this planet. Mm-hmm. And don't think it's not, that's what the Matrix is. They have had centuries to perfect how to control large numbers of human beings of all colors, shapes, and sizes through media. And
well, so let's take that. So Father's Day is coming up. And one of the things that we understand about Black fathers is, if you look in the media, how they are portrayed as, being, well, fathers in general, but that aloof, that they don't take care of their responsibilities, that they're not doing all these things. They're the butt of the jokes. But that is a pit, so that there is this downplaying of the man, the downplaying of the vitality of why we need that mom and that dad in that household. Now, granted, there are some households that are just single parents, and it is what it is. But there is a power, there is a strength when there is both the mother and the father in a home. And I think if you go all the way back, so slavery happens, we get out of slavery, we're coming in, we get into Jim Crow. That Jim Crow era, if you begin to look at the media specifically around Black men, they were rapists, they were thieves, they were horrible, whoremongering sort of people that keep your wives away from them.
But that's what Birth of a Nation, mm-hmm. that film really codified, and it all really, at the end of the day, because we're getting ready to close out, and I'm going to have you back. It's white supremacy, mm-hmm. and there's no other way you can cover it, because, as I said, since the 7th century, they have controlled all forms of communications, and that's deep. That's where, when we were reading off your accreditations about cognitive language and all of those things, that's when understanding how all of that sews this tapestry of rewriting history, because mm-hmm. Education is there not to remember statistics and what have you, to show you how to access information if you want to find it.
Yep.
So
and to give these underlying stories. And when you understand the story, when you understand what is happening in the background, then we understand and we're able to now navigate how we move forward.
Yes, let me say this, Doc. What would you have to say in closing that you would want specifically people of color? What's your sage advice, your experience, or what would you have to say to our community?
I would like for us to stop saying what happens in our house stays in our house, because what happens in our house that has stayed in our house has caused us to have so much trauma. And that trauma has spilt over in our jobs. It has spilt over in our relationships. It has spilt over in our churches. It has spilt over in our communities. And until we start to address the issues, we will never be able to truly come out.
Oh boy, that's I think that's fitting to end on. As we always say when we close out, when you invest in your community, you're really just investing in yourself. Good night.
Program is brought to you by the Kansas City Business Association.